Hello and welcome. My name is Chris Rowena, Communications Team Supervisor with Health Workforce Development at HCAI. We're so glad you could join us today for the Song Brown Family Nurse Practitioner Physician Assistant or FNP PA program webinar. We're excited to share more about this important opportunity and walk through the details of the program with you. Here's a quick look at today's agenda. We'll be going over housekeeping and introduction, followed by a welcome and an overview. We will go through the details of the program, and then we will have time for some questions and answers at the end, followed by closing remarks. Some housekeeping items to make sure you get the most out of today's session. Before we begin, number one, we are in the Zoom webinar platform. Your controls are in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. We will be using the Q&A feature for all of our comments and questions today. You can type your input at any time, and we ask that you use the thumbs up icon to upvote a question that's already been asked that you would also like answered. We will be recording today's session, and the recording will be available on our website, usually within 10 business days. I would also like to note that if you click on down in the toolbar, you'll notice a resources feature. If you don't see that, there might be a more button that you have to click on, but you'll see a resources feature down in the toolbar. You can find a link to the program webpage, the grant guide, and the technical assistance guides that we have that you'll need to be able to apply. Go ahead and check out those resources now. Those will be available throughout the webinar, and they are also available on our website. Before we jump in, I want to start with the foundation of all of our work here at HCAI. Our vision is a healthier California where all receive equitable, affordable, and quality health care. And our mission is to expand equitable access to quality, affordable care by supporting resilient facilities and a strong health workforce and actionable health information for all of Californians. Everything we do from programs to partnerships connects back to that mission. And so with that in mind, let's jump in today's session. My pleasure to introduce Justine Pasquale, Program Officer for Song Brown FNPPA, to get us started. Justine.
Thank you, Chris, for that introduction. I'm Justine Pasquale. I'll be overseeing the FNP and PA grant cycle. But just before I get started with the presentation, we do have a little poll here. It's just asking what programs you are interested in applying for. But I don't quite see. There you go. So go ahead and take some time and just answer these questions, and then we will start the presentation. All right, so I don't see the answers, but doesn't matter. They're both going to be covered under this application. So let's just get started. Before I walk through the application, I wanted to briefly touch on what Song Brown is about. Here at Song Brown, we support several healthcare workforce training programs across California. We fund multiple programs such as primary care residencies, family nurse practitioner, and physician assistant, which we're here today, registered nursing programs, and then midwifery programs, specifically licensed and certified nurse midwifery programs. Our overall goal is to strengthen California's healthcare workforce and improve access to care, so especially in underserved communities. Our funding is focused on programs that train providers to serve medically in underserved areas, and we also like to encourage programs to recruit students from underrepresented groups and provide training sites at sites that primarily serve Medi-Cal patients. So with that overview in mind, let's shift our focus to the FNP grant program. So next slide, please. All right, so these are our key dates for this application cycle. The application isn't quite open just yet, but it will open on August 12th at 3 p.m. On top of today's webinar, we're also hosting a secondary webinar on August 19th at 2 p.m. So if you have to leave early today or know someone who couldn't make it, they'll have another chance to attend the second webinar on that August 19th date. So our early submission deadline is September 9th at 3 p.m. And the application will officially close on that September 23rd at 3 p.m. deadline. Just a quick reminder, all of our dates and deadlines are based on Pacific time and everything opens and closes at 3 p.m. So we like to keep it simple here. So I also wanted to encourage everyone to take advantage of that early submission deadline. If you submit it by then, we'll review your application and then send you feedback. Just note, we're not scoring your application at that point, but we will be able to point out anything that your application may have been missing or clarified, so that you have time to make the updates before that final deadline. And then next slide. Before you start applying, there are just a few important things you should keep in mind. If your organization requires approval from a coordinating authority before entering into a contract, just make sure they're aware of the grant terms and conditions ahead of time. You'll be able to see an example of the grant agreement, both for FNP and PA, at the end of our grant guide. The grant guide is currently available on our Song Brown FNP PA page, and it's also included under the resource tab down below. Applicants will also need to agree to all of the terms and conditions outlined in that grant guide. And I also wanted to note that we will not be making any changes to the grant agreement, so it's important to review those terms before you start your application. And lastly, these grant funds are meant to supplement existing funding, not replace any federal, state, or local funding that's already being used to provide primary care services. So now let's talk about what's different this year and some of the updates you'll notice in the 2026 cycle. For starters, there is a new process of adding grant preparers, which I'll expand later on in this section, in the slides, sorry. Another change is that the application now requires an additional signatory. This person cannot be the program director, but they can be the same person who signs the grant agreement and the SCD 204. At the end of the application, you will notice a new question asking whether someone from your organization will be willing to participate in an interview with HCAI or one of our contracted partners. This is simply to help support program evaluation efforts, so it will not be scored, so you won't have to worry about that. And lastly, I wanted to mention that we currently don't have available funds for the midwifery programs this year, but we strongly encourage you to keep checking our Song Brown page for any future updates regarding that program and all the other programs under the Song Brown umbrella. Next, please. Here are a few things you'll want to have ready before starting your application. First, you'll need your grant agreement, SCD 204, and your additional signatory information. We just need their first and last names and along with a reliable email address for each signatory. You'll also want to make sure your organization's name or DBA name matches exactly what's listed on your IRS W-9. For your training sites, you'll also need information for the sites that had the most cumulative training hours during the last academic year. That includes facility type, site name, address, cumulative hours, and finally the payer mix information. And just a reminder, only include California training sites where primary care is provided. Please don't include any out-of-state sites or sites that don't provide primary care. Next slide. You'll also need race, ethnicity, and gender data for all current students, as well as current practice site information and their NPI, which is their National Provider Identifier numbers for all graduates you include. Lastly, just be sure to have the following required documents ready. Next slide, please. So if you're applying for an FNP program, please provide the California Board of Registered Nursing Approval Letter, so the BRN. And if you are applying for a PA program, please provide the Accreditation Review Commission on Education for the Physician Assistant or ARCPA letter. Next. All right, so here are some helpful resources available to you guys. These are also accessible right now through the resource tab down below. Recordings of this webinar, which Chris mentioned in the beginning of this presentation, will also be provided later on. And our FNP PA page as well has a PDF copy of this presentation. It's not currently up yet, but it will be available to you guys soon. Next page. Now we can proceed with the electronic application registration, EAP for short. So if you are a new applicant, you must make an account on our funding portal in order to start an application. When you reach this page, just click on the sign in or register button. And from there, you should see this pop up. Please click on the sign up now link that's highlighted in blue and enter a good email address where a verification will be sent. Once you verify your email and have chosen a good password, you will see the screen. First, you want to make sure you select the box for Organization for Healthcare Workforce. And from there, use the search function, which is that magnifying glass, to see if your organization is already in our system. Most of the organizations should already be in our system, so we always recommend you use that search feature before requesting a new one. But so if you selected your pre-existing organization and you find it there, it will automatically populate in the search field and you'll be ready to move on with the application. But if you can't find your organization, then you must click the Request New Organization, which is highlighted in blue, to submit for approval. After you click that button, this page should pop up. Once you're on this page, enter your organization name and the address of your organization. The Select Address feature, when clicked, will open a window and allow you to enter and search for an address. When the address is confirmed, it will auto-populate and you can submit your request. A Song Brown staff will review the request within 5 business days, so please make sure all info was entered correctly. And after you have selected or submitted a request for your organization, you need to complete your profile. You'll see red asterisk, which is required information that you need to fill out. So before you click submit, take a moment to double check that all of your information is correct. And once your profile has been submitted, you should see a message confirming that it was updated successfully. Once you have created your new account, your role will default to grant preparer. If you are a program director, please email us at the Songbrown email, which is songbrown@hcai.ca.gov. As a reminder, the program directors are the only ones that can initiate and submit the application. Once you have sent us an email, we have reviewed your requests, and we will send a follow-up email confirming that your role has changed to program director and you could start applying. So if you want to assign other users, you need to navigate to your program director's profile and select the Assign Other Users tab. Once you're there, click on the Add User button and select any user. Just a reminder, the user must be under the same organization, so it must be attached to their profile in order to be added successfully. If the application was already initiated, these grant preparers are able to view and edit the application, but like I said before, they cannot submit it, only the program directors can. Next, please. After you've decided the grant preparer and the program director roles, it's time to apply. On the funding portal, you must look for the current cycle and start your application. Next slide. Now we can move on to some helpful tips. You'll see these navigating buttons on the bottom of the page. Every time you move on to the next page, it'll save whatever progress you have. At any time, you're able to exit out of the application and come back to where you left off if you have saved your progress successfully. So I recommend before, logging out of your account, just make sure to press the Save and Next button. To access your applications again, click on the Grant Application tab that should be on the top. Next. I mentioned these before. The little red asterisks are flagging the required fields. If these specific fields aren't filled out, then you won't be able to proceed to the next page. The little question icon is a tooltip that when clicked on or hovered will provide more information on that specific question, title, or sentence. Next. And now we get to walk through the application. Cool. So most of this page should already be filled out if from your profile. So just give it a quick look, make sure everything looks good, and then choose the appropriate training program type, which is FNP or PA. Use the magnifying glass to search for your training program title and select it from the list. If you don't see it, try searching one more time. Most programs should already be in the system, but if it's still not there, no worries. Just check the training program not listed. Once everything looks good, you're ready to move on to the next section. Next. Okay, now let's look at what do you do if your training program isn't already in the system. Once you have checked the training program not listed box, it will open a few additional fields. A new window will pop up where you can search for and select the correct address. Once the confirmed address is selected, it'll automatically fill in the fields for you. You'll see the same address validation feature throughout the app, so you'll get pretty familiar with it quickly. Next page. All right, so now let's take a look at the contract administration section. For contract and organization name and DBA, make sure they match exactly what's listed on your IRS W-9. Can we go back one more page? Sorry, one more slide. I believe it's slide 29. Thank you. This is the contract administration section. For contract, organization name, and DBA, make sure they match exactly what's listed on your IRS W-9. If your W-9 doesn't include a DBA, just leave that field blank. Next, select whether your organization is a governmental or non-governmental entity. And then finally, enter the contract administrator. This should be a primary person who will be managing the grant and serving as the main point of contact. Okay, now we can move on. Thank you. This year, you'll also need to provide an additional signatory, someone else with contracting authority at your organization. Your grant agreement signatory should be the person authorized to sign grant agreements. But if your SCD 204 signatory is different, just select no and enter the correct person. Be sure to verify all of this information with your finance or contract office. Incorrect information can delay your grant agreement if you're awarded. Next page. Next is this program description section. There's a maximum limit of 2,500 characters. So if you're copying and pasting from a different source, just make sure that there weren't any cutoffs. And yeah, so go ahead and make sure, do a double take and just make sure that nothing was cut off. But we'll catch this if you submit your application during the early submission deadline. Now let's move on into the program data section. So you're going to want to choose students and graduates data if you have graduates from the 23, 24, and or 24, 25 academic years. If you only have current student data, just select that option which says the student data only. If you're a brand new program with no student or graduate data yet, just choose new program. Next. The next section is where you'll add the training sites that's included in your application. For the FNP PA grant, we are allowing up to 5 training sites, so make sure to include the training sites with the most cumulative hours. You'll be able to add each of your eligible training locations one at a time. Each site is entered through a separate window, which I'll talk about later, where you'll provide the required details before saving. So if you need to make any changes later, you can easily update or remove a site from the list without starting over. But as you build your list, just make sure you've included all of the required training sites before moving on. Next page. So when you're adding a new training site, you'll need to complete a few details about that location. Just start by entering the name of the training site. Then you're going to want to identify the facility type or types that apply. Some sites may fall into more than one category. So if you're unsure which option to choose, you can utilize the HCAI Geo website to help confirm the correct facility type. Finally, select and verify the site's address before continuing on to the next field. Next. Before submitting the site, there are a few final fields of information to provide. If you don't know the site's NPI number, you can use the provided link, which is highlighted in blue, to look it up. You'll also enter the site's payer mix using data from the last 12 months. The percentage doesn't have to add up to 100%, but they do need to be entered as whole numbers. Once everything has been completed, click Submit to save the training site. Next. The next section focuses on your program's expenditures and funding. Here you'll enter your funding request and your program's annual expenditures. After selecting the number of slots you're requesting, the total funds requested will automatically calculate, so you won't need to fill out in those gray out fields. And as a reminder, we're allowing a maximum request of 14 slots at $13,000 per slot. So when you're filling out the expenditures for each category, please base it all on your 25-26 academic year. Before moving on, just make sure your total program expenditures are equal to or greater than your total fund requested. Otherwise, it'll prevent you from moving on to the next section. Next, we'll take a look at the aggregate student data section. Here you'll enter your program's enrollment information for the 25-26 academic year. You're going to want to start by entering your total enrollment capacity, followed by the number of students who applied and the number currently enrolled. You'll also break down your enrolled students by year in the program. So as you're entering the data, just make sure your total enrolled students don't exceed your program's enrollment capacity. Next. The last part of the aggregate student data section is reporting your students' race and ethnicity. So enter the number of enrolled students for each race and ethnicity category. As you complete the section, just make sure your totals match the total number of enrolled students you entered on the previous page. Before moving on, just give everything a quick review to make sure your counts are accurate, as it won't let you move on if the totals don't match. If your program selected student and graduate data, the next section is where you'll enter information for each graduate. So start by entering the total number of graduates for each academic year requested. The graduate records you add should match the totals you entered at the top of the page. Select Add a Graduate to enter each graduate's information individually. If you need to make changes later, you could always use the drop-down menu to edit or delete a graduate before submitting. Next, please. Okay. If you have additional details like an NPI number or practice specialty, just be sure to include them. For graduates working in California, you'll also provide information about their current practice location. If that information isn't available or they're practicing outside of California, there are options to indicate that so you can still complete the graduate record. Next. All right, the last main section of the application is uploading your required documents. This page will show you which documents are required based on your application. When you're ready, upload each document in the appropriate section. Just be sure to follow the required file naming format. The system uses the file name to recognize and accept the upload. Once the upload is successful, you'll see a confirmation on the page letting you know it has been accepted. But if you ever need to replace a document, you can remove the existing file and upload a new one before submitting your application. All right, so the final step before submitting your application is completing the assurances page. Like I mentioned in the beginning of this presentation, we'll have a new question, and this is the question. So you'll answer a brief question about participating in a future interview. This option is optional and won't impact your application review. So before submitting, just take a moment, read through the certification statement, and then once you're ready, just check that box and submit the application. Keep in mind that after you submit it, you won't be able to make any additional changes, so it's a good idea to do one final review beforehand. Next. Even after you've submitted your application, you'll still be able to access a copy for your records. Just use the drop down to access a printable version of your application. Next, please. Before we wrap up here, I wanted to highlight a few of the most common issues we see during the application review. Many of these issues are so easy to avoid with a quick review before you hit submit. Just double check that all required student or graduate info has been entered if it applies to your program. Just make sure your organization name and signatory information are accurate and consistent with your records, especially your IRS W-9. If you're selecting a training program, always search the existing list before requesting a new one. Taking a few extra minutes to review your application can help prevent delays and keep the review process moving smoothly. So that wraps up today's presentation. Thank you for joining me, and I'll pass the mic back to Chris to open the floor up to questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Justine. We're now going to transition to our question and answer session. To ask a question, please use the Q&A feature located in the Zoom toolbar at the bottom of your screen, as many of you have already been doing. You can submit your questions at any time. And again, please use that upvote button if you have the same question that's already been asked, and we'll make sure to prioritize those questions. We have about 30 minutes available to us to go through any questions you all might have. So plenty of time today. But in the possibility that we do run out of time, or if you tomorrow think, man, I wish I would have asked this question in the webinar, please email us at songbrown@hci.ca.gov, and our team will be happy to work with you. Also, if you have very specific personal situations, you can do that as well. So right now, I'm showing no open questions in the Q&A, so let's start getting those in there. But in the meantime, we do have a few questions that we have answered already. All right, I see some questions starting to come in here. First one is from Tracy. Thank you, Tracy. Can you please review the additional signatory requirement again and who this should be?
Yes, Tracy. So the additional signatory is just another person who can sign. This isn't it can't be the same person as the program director, but will also but could be the same as the SCD 204 signatory or the grant agreement signatory.
All right, thank you, Justine.
Mhm.
Next question we have, Kelly asks, we have a Song Brown program already. Can we apply to continue the same award when it ends?
Um, are you talking about the last previous cycle? Sorry, can you?
Kelly, if you could
Uh,
give us a little more detail.
yes, please. Yes, correct. The dean should be fine to serve as the additional signatory. Just any authorized person. Mhm.
All right. Very good, thank you. Let's see here. Tracy says, so our provost is the only one able to sign grants or contracts, so I don't have any other person to sign. Is that correct?
So Tracy, so the program director should be different to the SCD 204 and the grant agreement. Are they the same person?
One of the things that we may be able to do is, Tracy, if you want to email our team and let us know who you have specifically that you want to have, our team can verify in the system that who's in what places. So go ahead and email us at songbrown@hki.ca.gov. All right. All right, and from Kelly, we have an update, a clarification on that first question. Kelly says, we have an award that will end before this new award would start. Does HCAI award subsequent Song Brown to the same program?
So Kelly, yes, you will be able to start this award if it is within Song Brown, the same program.
All right, thank you. And Tracy, I see we're getting you help there. Um, let's see here. Uh, Next question is from Deb. Can you clarify on the program director? Looks like we have a lot of questions about who can sign. I think that's a consistent theme we're seeing right here. Can I sign as the program director? Can I, as the program director, initiate and submit the application? That's the question.
Yes. So actually, the program directors are the only ones to initiate and submit the application. Grant preparers will not be able to do that, but they'll be able to edit or modify the application.
All right, thank you. And Cami, I see you're having trouble finding the additional resources button down at the bottom. Sometimes you'll have to click on, you may have a button that says more. And down in the toolbar, if you click on that, you should see the resources link. And so that should make it available for you. Uh, and again, all of those resources are on our webpage as well. So anything that we posted in those resources are you can just go to the Song Brown FNPPA webpage and you'll find it as well. Um, all right. Next question is an anonymous question. Can we submit more than one proposal in an organization? For instance, one for nursing and one for PA.
Yes, correct. Proposal in an yeah, so for the FNP PA program, you can submit an application. But if you would like to send us an email, so I could further expand on this, at songbrown@hci.ca.gov. That'll be great.
Well, as we wait for some new questions to come in, I want to highlight a few questions that have already been answered and just make sure that everybody's heard the answer to that. First one was also from Tracy. Despite being listed on the prior slide, enrollment of URMs is not being counted again this year. Is that correct? And uh, David, one of our team members, said that is correct. We're not counting enrollment of URM in our scoring for this cycle. Anything you'd like to add on that, Justine?
No, what David said was correct. We're not counting enrollment of URM.
All right. And another question we had. Um, Our organization has an accredited primary care medical residency program with Song Brown. We're interested in adding an FNP PA program. If our organization serves primarily as a clinical training site for FNP and PA students through affiliated universities, would we be eligible to apply, or would the accredited university training program need to be the applicant? That was the question. And Castany, another one of our program officers, said to be eligible to apply the Song Brown FNP PA grant uh, award, your program must be a standalone accredited FNP or PA program. The FNP and PA grant cycle is only available for programs with currently enrolled cohorts. Anything you'd like to add onto that one, Justine?
Yeah, like Cassini mentioned, they already have to have a standalone accredited FNP PA program. That's part of our required documents. So you would have to have that information before applying. Mhm.
All right, thank you. Got a new question in from Catherine. When you ask about a facility being government owned, does that include all levels of government, such as city, county, state, federal, and tribal?
Um, for that question, I believe it's public or private. I think that's what the difference between government or non-government. But if someone could back me up on this, I'm not too sure. But you could always email us at that Song Brown HCAI. We'll be able to answer your question fully.
All right.
Mhm.
All right, and the team can put a little more detail in that if they have for that. Thank you, Justine.
Mhm.
Um, Next question. Missed the first 10 minutes of the meeting. If we have a new director, should they create a new profile and then email for verification?
So yes, if you have a new director, they should create a new profile. Once they create that profile, we'll be the ones to have to make them a program director. Because if you are a new profile, it automatically defaults to grant preparers. So yeah, just go ahead and have them make that profile so we can get them to become a program director.
All right. Anonymous question. Please explain the submission process again. I am not a PI, but I do have the ability to submit for my organization. Does the PI need to initiate the proposal or can I?
So I believe I believe you're talking about program director. If
Type of-
that's so, program directors are able to submit and initiate it. But if you're not the program director for your organization, you'll not be able to do the initiation or submission. You'll only be able to edit it.
All right. Great questions from everyone. We appreciate the participation. We've got plenty of time left, so this is a great opportunity to get any question that you have out and hopefully answered. Jessica has one. If our organization has submitted an application for the last year, does the previously entered data carry over into the new application, or does all information need to be re-entered?
So, yes, it will have to be re-entered in this application.
Right. And another anonymous question here. To edit the proposal, if I am on the project director, does the project director specifically need to make me a delegate? I'm thinking that says I am not the project director to edit.
Okay. If you mean delegate by, the grant preparers, the program director can make you a program uh, grant preparer, sorry. But you could always email us at songbrown@hci to make, just give me, you just need to make sure they have an email or their account is set up, and then we could go ahead and add them to your organization.
Okay. All right. It says the confusion is the difference between the actual FNP or PA program director initiating, or can it be the grant director? So it sounds like we have within the organizations maybe different people as the program director and the grant director.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Just please email us at that Song Brown, and then we could have a more detailed explanation for that.
Great. Um, Next question we have is, are you able to expand on the scoring criteria?
Um, yeah, sure. It is basically hasn't changed from the last cycle. But if you would like to email us at that Song Brown email, I could give you a whole description of the scoring criteria.
All right. And do we want to pop over to the scoring criteria page just for everybody's ability to see that one more time?
We don't have a scoring criteria on
Okay.
these
I
websites.
apologize.
Yeah, just no worries.
All right. Next one, looks like we have another request to go check out another slide here. I think it's slide 11. They say you have a list of data needed for each training site, and I think the same data is needed for each graduate's place of employment. Please show that slide and speak to where is best to find the characteristic of the place or employment site, not the name and address, of course, just the stuff about what kind of org it is.
Can you go on slide 11, please? Thank you. Um, for each graduate's place of employment. Um, Let me double check. Can we push this to can you go ahead and email us that question to our Song Brown email? Um,
I think on this, these sorts of information are also explained in the application. Is that correct?
yes, correct.
All right. But yeah, if there's any additional questions, definitely email us and we can explain any thing that's not quite clear on that. So, all right. We got about 15 minutes left here. Let's see. Go look back at some answered questions, see if there's anything else we want to highlight that we have spoke to. One thing that I think is important to mention, the slides and the recording will be available on the FNPPA resource or the FNPPA program webpage under the resource section, and you can see the link there in the answered questions. And typically, we do have to make those accessible documents, and so it takes us about 10 business days to get that done. And we will have those available for you within about 10 business days. And I just wanted to come back to one of the questions that we had earlier from Catherine about the facility being government owned. We did confirm that government owns does refer to all levels of government. So, as Justine mentioned, if it is publicly owned in any way, shape, or form at any of those levels, that does count as being government owned. So thank you, Jen, for finding the answer for that one. And again, slides will get posted within about 10 business days. Give us time to get them accessible for our audience here. Uh, And then a little more clarification on the questions about grant director and project director. The program director will be the primary point of contact for the grant agreement. They can be anyone that the program assigns as the primary point of contact for the Song Brown grant application and agreement. So sounds like there's some flexibility there as to who the program director is. That's something that can be assigned by the programs themselves. Is that correct, Justine?
Yes, that is correct.
Fantastic. Hopefully that clears up the confusion that was out there about that. So, um, all right. Well, want to give a little bit of time to make sure that all your questions have been answered. If we still have some questions out there, we've got another. I'll give another minute or two to get them in. Um, Reminder that you can always email us at songbrown@hci.ca.gov to get your questions answered anytime during the program opening cycle. Also want to remind you to go check out the resources tab if you haven't done that already. Make sure that you've seen all of the different resources, especially the grant guide. That is the key document to make sure that you're familiar with as you fill out your application. And again, those are available on our website. Want to mention as well, if you can be working towards that early submission review time, which is September 9th at 3 p.m. This is one of the best opportunities we offer to make sure that you get your application in and correct. And so please take advantage of that opportunity if you're all able to, because September 23rd, the program does close at 3 p.m. and there won't be additional review opportunities unlike that September 9th date. So, Justine, I'm noticing we have no more open questions. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we move on to the close of the webinar?
No, I just want to thank everyone for attending today. Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Well, Justine and team, thank you for all of your answers. And thank you everyone who has joined us today to learn more about the Song Brown Family Nurse Practitioner and Physician Assistant program. We're glad that you've joined us, and we're proud to offer this opportunity as part of our broader effort to strengthen California's health workforce. Once again, remember the early submission date, September 9th, 3 p.m., and the application closed September 23rd. Make sure you take advantage of that. Before we wrap up, I want to invite you to explore many of the resources available on our website to support your journey in the health workforce. And so you can go ahead, if you haven't, explore through our website. And we can go to that next slide. Also want to invite you to follow us on your favorite social media platform. We are on all of these here, and we would love for you to follow us and engage. One of the things that we would really encourage you to do is post stories and tag us with the great work that your Song Brown programs are doing. We love to hear about the great work that you all are doing out there in regards to Song Brown. So tag us. We would love to see that happen. Also, email us with your success stories. That always makes us happy as well. All right. Another resource that we would really encourage you to take advantage of is our monthly Health Workforce Program update newsletter. You can sign up for this by going to the website at the top of the screen here, hci.ca.gov/mailing-list, and you're going to scroll down to the section called Health Workforce. Select any of the options that are available under that health workforce category, and you will automatically be added to our monthly newsletter. And that's one of the ways that you can stay up to date on all of the things health workforce related coming out of HCAI. You can always contact us by phone at 916-326-3700 or email at songbrown@hci.ca.gov, and we will be happy to help you out. Thank you everyone for attending today. We do appreciate your time and your interest, and we look forward to your application to the Song Brown FNP PA program. And with that, we do conclude today's webinar, and we hope you have a wonderful day.